Girl, today we are talking about the do's and don'ts of your first relationship. I'm giving you these tips with so much love and so many feelings and emotions because I was thinking about some of my very first relationships and I made every single mistake in the book. And I stumbled on a couple things that worked. And so I'm going to share with you my best do's and don'ts of your first relationship so that you can avoid every single one of the bad mistakes that I made and hopefully keep your relationship fresh and light and something that is just really wonderful for you to experience, because relationships should be that. Relationships should be wonderful. They should teach us what we want in a partner. And so that's what these tips are going to help you do. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts of your very first relationship. So let's talk about the do's first, because I always think it's good to lead with do these things. And I feel like if you can do a lot of positive things in your relationship and remember these do's or tips, that it's really gonna set you off on the right foot. And I really wish with all my heart somebody had sat me down and taught me these. So I'm coming at you, girl, so that you can do these things and know them and have somebody tell you these things. So first and foremost, keep it light. I say this with so much experience behind this one. So believe me on this one that you want to keep this relationship light. And I know that right now, especially as you start this relationship, your heart is pounding. Your heart is racing. You feel like you're going to marry this person. You are just so crazy, head over heels. But listen to your life coach. Keep it light. I remember, true story, and this is so embarrassing. But for my very first, this wasn't the first guy that liked me, but this was the first guy that I was just crazy about him, and he seemed super crazy about me. And so we hung out, and that's when we kissed, and we were this really could go somewhere. And I just thought that was it. That was our relationship starting. And so I was just so over the top with oh my gosh, I love you, and just all these things, because I didn't know that you don't say those things. And it was no surprise to me later in my life that he was out of there so fast. And I remember watching Hitch, that movie with Will Smith, and I'd never seen it before, and I was sitting on the couch with my family and I was watching it, and it's the scene where he shows his first relationship and how he was I love you. How could you do this to me? We were supposed to have children together, with that girl he loved. And she's oh, go away. I hate that you're so into me. It's weird, but my mouth dropped. I stood there for a good 10 minutes. I wasn't watching the movie. I was just thinking, because that happened to me because I didn't keep it light. I was so convinced that I was gonna marry this person. I was exactly like Hitch was in that, just that movie where I was just all in, and I was I love you, and we're gonna have babies, and we're gonna be married, and just the whole thing. And so keep it light. I say that with so much love. I'm telling you right now, if you can keep it light, you can keep this relationship together. Guys, run. They bolt for the door when you are too invested, too deep in, just too in love with them. I know it's weird. One day that's not going to be a problem. But right now in your first relationships, guys will bolt if you are too serious. So keep it light, keep it fresh for your own heart, for their heart, to make everything just fit and work. You want to keep your relationship really light, and you can like them, you can kiss them, you can hang out with them, but do not be like me and just fall head over heels for that first guy, because you will 100% get your heart shattered if you do not keep this relationship light. My second do for you, do have a conversation about your relationship. That was a huge mistake I made as well. In so many of my relationships, I did not realize that unless you had an official conversation about it, he was not my boyfriend. nobody told me that. And I also, like, I will admit, I have a personality. I'm very intense. I'm very loyal. And when I find a person, like, that's it. And so it shocked me when other people weren't like that. When I'd hang out with a guy and I only kissed a guy if I like only liked him. Do you imagine like how I felt when I learned that this guy was out dating other girls, kissing other girls? Like that happened a lot in my relationships because I didn't realize that. It's important to have a conversation about it. And it can be a light conversation, right? We don't want to scare him away. We want to keep it light. But it's really important to set boundaries of saying like, okay, what does this relationship mean to you? Are you like, are we dating a lot of other people? Like, am I just like a fun date? Like, what is this relationship? Do have that conversation. Do hang out with lots of friends. That is one of my most important do's that you can do in one of your first relationships, because what tends to happen is the first time you get that boyfriend, that first time you have a relationship, you forget that you ever had friends. You forget that there are other people in the universe because you're so crazy about this guy. All normal, all okay, but like hang out with your friends. It is so important and actually strengthens and helps your relationship if you can like hang out with your BF like with other people in different settings, because then the pressure's off of you to always have an activity or something to do. Then you aren't just like making out all the time, which we'll talk about more in this video, but just it's good to have your relationship based off of like friendship activities. It's good to hang out with other people so that you can see how your boyfriend reacts to other people, to situations. Like sometimes it's really important to know that you aren't just dating a guy who's really sweet and awesome to you, but a jerk to all your friends. So do hang out with lots of people, do go on tons of great group dates, and do like keep your friends really involved in your life, because inevitably you're probably 99% gonna break up with this guy at some point, and it's really important to have that network of friends. So don't forget them just because you're goo-goo eyes for this really cute guy. So those were some really quick do's, and I would say some of my most important do's for you. So let's talk about the don'ts. First don't rush it. This goes back to like keeping it light, and that's one of the tips. If you've ever read, I have a whole guide that's got chapters and chapters on dating and boys and relationships, and I go into detail about my horror stories. That's in my high school guide, linked down below. And I share this tip of like, don't rush it. Yes, you like things are going great with this guy. This is your first relationship. So enjoy it, savor it, like love those moments. Like the first time he held your hand, that's amazing. You know, the first time you kiss, like savor all those moments, because you don't want to just rush through them. You don't want to feel like you didn't really get to know this person. And so just take it day by day. Just take your relationship as it grows, because both of you are growing and learning. Both of you are probably in very early stages of relationships. Maybe this is your first or second one, and it's probably the same for him. So just take it slow and just like have fun as you go. And if it's not fun, or if you feel like a lot of pressure, that's a huge red flag that maybe this isn't the best relationship for you to be in right now. Second don't get too physical too fast. Like I mentioned before, you want to make sure that your relationship is so much more than just kissing. You want to make sure that this is not, you know, something where this guy comes over and he always knows that you'll make out with him. This is a relationship, and relationships are built on so much more than just physical attraction and those butterflies that you get in your stomach when you're hugging and kissing. So don't rush the physical stuff. I knew so many friends that, you know, I'd ask like, oh, hey, are you dating so-and-so? Like, you seem really into each other at the dance, or like, tell me about this. And they'd just be like, oh, well, like, I thought it was something more, but he just wanted to make out all the time. One time I was really into a guy, and I thought he was so cute. So I was kind of asking around like my friends, like, do you know if he's dating anybody? What's this guy like? Because I was just getting to know him. And they said, well, I don't think he's dating anybody, but he does have this girl that like, they're kind of each other's like fallback, and they just like to make out randomly when they can't like find somebody else to date. And so it was like a huge red flag to me. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be that for somebody. I want to be somebody that has a genuine friendship with my boyfriend. I want to be somebody that has this basis of like, I like you as a person, and then kissing you is fun on top of that. So be sure that you aren't rushing the physical stuff too fast. And girl, please know that you are the one that has to set the boundaries with your body. Like, I always thought that like it was universally like understood, like, oh, I don't want to do those things. Absolutely not. And most of the time a guy will push it to your very limit. So be sure that your limit is somewhere you're extremely comfortable with. Third don't, do not put up with crap. I say this with so much love, and I want you to hear it with your rational brain instead of your I'm so in love with this guy brain. Because in our first relationships, we typically take a lot of crap because we don't know any better. So I want you to have this gut check. Have you ever like felt like been with your boyfriend or this guy that you're starting to have a relationship with and like had like a little red flag go off? Take serious note of that. Has he ever done something that really bugged you? Besides just being maybe like a boy, but like something that you were like, oh, I'm not okay with that. But then you forgot because he held your hand, right? Write those things down. Seriously, have some moments of reflection with yourself, because just because this guy likes you and just because he's super cute and just because he wants a relationship with you doesn't mean that you have to have one with him, or it doesn't mean that you have to put up with things that you don't like about him. Now, none of us are perfect. All of us have quirks and rough edges that we have to work through. But if a guy is maybe like treating you poorly, who he like puts you down, or he teases you in ways that you don't like to be teased, he makes you worried that like you're just like a Nickmo or anything like that, don't put up with it. Don't be afraid to break up with somebody. Don't be afraid to have these conversations. I was so worried in high school that I would hurt somebody's feelings that I avoided a lot of really tough conversations. Do you know whose feelings I ended up hurting instead? My own. So put yourself first, and just because it is your first time going through these emotions and you might feel like you might have this crazy irrational thought that he might be the only one out there for you, not true. So don't put up with any crap. Those were 6 of my top do's and don'ts for your very first relationship. So I hope you took notes. I hope you saved this video to your watch later, because you might need to reflect back on this and have some hard conversations with yourself. You might need to remind yourself to keep it light. You might need to remind yourself that, oh yeah, I haven't hung out with my friends in quite a while, so let's have a big group movie night, right? It's important to go over these things because, like I mentioned, relationships, especially at, a young age, especially at some of our very first relationships, they're for learning. They're for figuring out like, oh, I like this in a person. I don't like this in a person. And it really helps to have some guidance on like expectations and like how you should handle a relationship. So I hope this video helped you out. Like I mentioned, I have a high school guide that goes into way more dating advice and way more information on like friends and standards and like how to work through some of those emotions. So check that out down below, and I wish you the best of luck. Relationships are so much fun. Relationships are awesome, especially if you know the do's and don'ts. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a video on how to master young adulthood. And I cannot wait to see you in my next video. So Abby J out.